I'm Caden Love.
And I'm Seema Love, his wife.
And we are Love and Lore, taking dark fantasy, light fantasy, and everything in between.
Today we are going to be reading 1-star reviews to some of the books that we both read and loved. So let's see what these people have to say.
And to put this out there, I think 1-star reviews, there's a difference between giving a book a bad review, which I think is usually a 2, and a 1-star, which is pure hatred. I've had some books that I didn't like that I've given 2-star reviews, and those, I don't think I've given a 1-star review to anything out there. The kind of books that deserve 1-star reviews, you've got to have a personal vendetta out.
Yeah.
A lot of these are very emotionally fueled, so we'll go ahead and read them. So what are we starting out with?
We are starting with The Name of the Wind, which is a book that we both read and loved, even though it's not, I wouldn't say it's soft fantasy, which is kind of my niche.
Mm-hmm.
I still loved it. This one says Twilight for Boys. Quoth is a perfect awesome genius, has perfect parents who are tragically killed, goes off to do an Oliver Twist, and lives as an urchin. Gets sick of it, so goes to wizard school to do Harry Potter, because he's awesome. Draco Snape are jealous. Oh, and there are some girls who totally want. This, I can see what this person is saying.
Yes. So a lot of people's problem with this book, I know, is they think that it is wish fulfillment. And I don't know. I can't judge Patrick Rothfuss as a person, and I don't really want to get into that because there's a lot of controversy around there. But when I take a book, I don't really try to put that there. I try to enjoy the book for what it is. And sure, Quoth might have some moments where he's a little cocky. He's pretty downtrodden, and honestly, this book doesn't treat him very well. So it's you almost want him to have good, you know?
Yeah.
His parents were killed in a horrible manner. And I got pitched when I'm trying to get people to read this book, which I know a lot of people might have problems with because there's no third book yet. But I'd say that it's imagine Harry Potter, but Harry has to pay to go to school. He doesn't have some fund from his dead parents. He has to earn the money by being a bard, and that's most of the struggle in this book is, he's trying to pay for his university.
Read this one.
Okay. I'm a stuntman, so my opinion on a book doesn't mean anything. But if you name your book Fart, and there's no farting or real discussion of farts, that's -1 star. It's been a while since I've read this, but they do kind of hint at The Name of the Wind, and I think it's more so talking about the power of the magic there. And you have a lot of books, I'm sorry, if you want every book to be like Game of Thrones, where it's in a Game of Thrones, when you die, and you're that's the title there, that's it. Sure, go ahead. But, Malazan is one of my favorite series, and you never have characters that are oh, yes, and these are the Gardens of the Moon.
Actually, that's really interesting that they pointed out, because I always loved the name. I was The Name of the Wind, it sounds so beautiful, and I love it when the name of the book is not necessarily, like Caden said, straightforward, this is what happens in the book, but it's more like a metaphor. And I do think that The Name of the Wind is kind of like a metaphor. It's fleeting, but then it comes to him in a moments. So I don't know, I feel I really like the name.
Okay, there were nights when I almost couldn't pick it up and could only get through 5 pages before I put it down and played Candy Crush. So honestly, that might be one of the problems with this book, I think it's a very much of a slow burn and kind of a slice of life, but honestly, not a ton really goes on moment to moment. It's a lot about his character journey, and if you find Candy Crush more enjoyable than this, that might be your thing.
The next book that we both liked was Mistborn. I think we both gave it 5 stars, right?
Yeah, this is probably my favorite trilogy.
Let's jump into some good reviews.
Okay. This person says, I made the mistake of reading this immediately after reading China Mayville's Perdido Street Station, which is like eating a stale Little Debbie cupcake after a slice of the richest, most magnificent chocolate cake you've ever had in your life. The characterization was so painful I couldn't get through it. The premise and the magic system are creative, but that's the only praise I have to offer this book. I eventually threw it at the wall. I don't know why you would hate a book so much to throw it at a wall. like, if I don't like a book, I'll sit down, and what astounds me is that so many of these people are like, my suffering is ended when they finish it, and it's like, just don't read it.
You know, at the same time, I could see how if someone read a book with a really beautiful prose, and then they read Brandon Sanderson right after that, I could see how the contrast could kind of emphasize the simplicity of the language, but I don't know if it would get to that point for me.
Yeah, a lot of people really like Sanderson's world building and magic system, and I know people have problems with his prose, which I enjoy it just because it's something I've been used to for a long time. And to be fair, Perdido Street Station is a very deep, weird novel that, you take something like, that's, let's say, David Lynch, something very unique, and compare it to, I think Mistborn's much better than Marvel, but it's like something Marvel, something that's meant to please the general audience. And, if you're looking at it expecting to be Perdido Street Station, you're not getting that. Did I read the same book as other people have here? A juvenile, shallow, rom-com caliber fantasy with terrible pacing, which reads like a fan fiction of a video game. Like, I'm sorry, just things like this I don't agree with. Like, this is just, I don't know. It is younger, I think, than like Stormlight, but as the books progress, I think it is tailored to older. I think a lot of people's problem with Sanderson is that he doesn't have a lot of explicit content, so they label it as YA, which, I think that Mistborn's perfectly in the middle of YA and adult fantasy, and I think that Stormlight's more adult, even though there's things that, younger audiences could read it. This isn't Game of Thrones, this isn't Joe Abercrombie, but it doesn't mean it's for children.
In this novel, there are 440 nods of the head, 299 smiles, 200 frowns, 152 shakes of the head, 166 glances, 120 sighs, 92 shrugs, 50 raised eyebrows, 31 pairs of rolled eyes, and 5 uses of the word maladroit.
There are times where an author can be really repetitive, but a nod is something that people really do commonly, and smile, like, it's an easy way to show what's going on with someone, so if you're going to pick that out, go ahead.
It was when the thief and the mage pulled out a whiteboard and started drawing a flowchart of how to conquer the fantasy kingdom that I realized, wait, I'm just reading some sadness D&D campaign. I'm not sure what purpose fiction serves, but I'm positive this is not it. In my head, that's exactly what fiction is.
Yes, so what purpose... Okay, so my idea is this person probably reads lots of nonfiction, and I think a lot of people are trying to get into fantasy start with Mistborn or Sanderson, and so maybe somebody's expecting something else, but it's like, I feel like all good fantasy you can just say is a really good written D&D campaign. I mean,
I know, The Lord of the Rings is literally like D&D.
Yes, and you look at Malazan, which I think is one of the most complex, if not the most complex and deep series, actually began as two authors' idea for a role-playing game. So, like, and Dritz, like, we have D&D books that are good. So, I don't know. That's just some people's problems. Being fair, going into this, we recognize that, yes, a lot of people aren't Sanderson fans. They want something very adult, or they're just, they want something a little bit deeper. And then you look at Name of the Wind, which might be kind of in their zone, but a lot of people have problems with Patrick Rothfuss. And so we're going to go back to a classic, that being The Lord of the Rings, because, there's people that have problems with everything, and I think that this is a masterpiece. So we're going to be looking at the whole trilogy right here, and, very small fraction, 1% of people gave it a 1 star. Okay. Can be summarized as walking, bit of fighting with orcs, walking, anguish, walking, bit more fighting with orcs, walking. I'm sorry, I think you've missed the whole purpose of this book, and it's about that journey. Like, take any book, especially take a lot of classics. You could be like, this book is summarized by talking. Some of the greatest books are just people talking in rooms. And it's about the context that matters. And if you are bored by the journey that is Lord of the Rings, I don't think there's any other journey out there that's going to please you. The most boring, overrated, infantile book ever written. I don't know if you know what infantile means, Boring and overrated. I can see why someone might think that certain parts are boring, and this is one of the most acclaimed series ever, so you could say it. But this man that wrote this book created such a thick world, a complete language and culture, that I don't think any book series has been given so much detail for just a trilogy.
Stupid. I don't understand. Like, it's just hard to wrap my mind around how differently people can see the same thing. And yesterday I was reading all these one-star reviews for the books that I think are so, I don't know, magical and great, and just seeing people not enjoying them at all, like, I don't understand. Our brains must function absolutely differently.
I got so bored I could not finish it. In fact, I sat down, the dog grabbed it, ran off, and urinated all over it. Even the dog hated it. So I think a lot of the thing is, there's a lot of people here that are like, oh, I guess fantasy isn't my thing, or it's so boring. And I guess that's where a lot of difficulty in this book comes from, is that Name of the Wind, Mistborn are relatively from fantasy-based fans that have their fiction books that they like. Lord of the Rings pulls in everyone from every genre. So there's bound to be people that don't like it. So it seems like the main things here are people think it's boring or too much walking.
That's it.
Well, thank you all for watching. I hope you laughed a little, because I think that is the best way to disagree with the opinions that you disagree with.
One thought I had as we were reading these today is, if you're a writer or an author and you published a book and you received some bad ratings, well, think about this. Lord of the Rings, Name of the Wind, Mistborn all have a ton of one-star reviews, so it's just something that happens. Mm-hmm. No one person is the same, and I guess it's okay.
And a fair share of these one stars aren't criticisms, they're just, like I said, people raging for some problem that they had with the book.
So keep reading, keep writing, and thank you for watching.